Oh, Travis.
Yes.
It is our first interview episode. Yes, it's very exciting. We interviewed the lovely Mick Ignus. He was amazing.
Hey, I actually was part of this one.
Yes, you were actually a part of this one. Hopefully we'll get you on for more of them, too. Full disclosure, we're recording these a little out of order.
What?
So, this was the first one we recorded, and it's the first one we're posting, though, because I want to keep consistent on that. The other ones can get all mixed up and jumbled. I don't give a shit. But yes, I love meeting people just like Mick, some nice people that are working on stuff that they're passionate about, so I'm excited for you guys to get to hear this interview. But speaking of passionate people that are just lovely and friendly and open
obsessed.
And slightly obsessed about stuff, I mean, but in the best way.
In the fan way.
Not in the restraining order type way.
Not yet.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But in the good way. And who's obsessed in the good way? Why, it's the Stand Against Evil fans, the Stan fans as I like to call them. And where can you find those people? Why, you can find them on the Stand Against Evil fan page. And you can find their stuff on Stand Against Evil fan page on Facebook or on Twitter at Stand Against Evil fans. They are a great group of people where you can get all your Stan news and share your feelings and thoughts on what you love about Stand Against Evil. And they do trivia on the weekends and just have a grand fun old time. It's super fun there. And yeah, you'll see me kicking around there every once in a while too, commenting on stuff, because I am one of you. You are one of us, and yes, I am one of you, of the insane Stan fans. And now I'm rambling, but that's just because I'm so goddamn excited about this fan page, and you should be too, so definitely check that out. But with that out of the way, let's just get into the interview, shall we?
All right.
Let's get on with the show. Hey, Travis.
Yeah.
I am so excited. Do you know what day it is, Travis?
I don't actually know. I think it might be Wednesday.
It is Wednesday.
Okay.
We are drunk and hungover at the same time from our trip to Austin because they party so hard down there.
It's true. We actually didn't go to bed any earlier than 2 a.m. any day.
Which is going to be really confusing for this one because we have our first interview for Pod Against Evil today.
So none of the people we met down in Austin, what you're saying?
No, well, I mean, there are people outside of Austin, Travis. I've learned this. In fact, we have one person coming from us from L.A., and that is one Mick Ignus. Mick, say hi.
How you doing? Good to hear from you.
So, Mick, my first question is, I am saying your name correctly, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If I had a nickel for every time somebody has said Mick Ignus or Mitch or anything like that, it's been a constant plague. I don't know why I chose this thing.
All right, I nailed it in one. That was I realized I should have asked you before we started recording, but I like the live pressure of it. So that I get the live rush of getting it right on air.
Start with the stakes high. Yes.
That way the interview
downhill from here.
The interview can only go downhill from here. So that's the most live energy I'm going to get.
You're 1 for 1 right now. It's going great.
Mm-hmm. So, but you are not a 1 for 1 actor. You actually a 1 for 4 actor for Stand Against Evil because you play several roles.
Four characters so far, with even more on their way.
Ooh. Yes, because you just wrapped up filming season 3 not too long ago. Am I correct?
I did. Yes, I came back, beginning of July after being out there for 6 weeks, which is the longest I've been out there for the last 3 seasons. Usually, I'm out there for about 2 weeks to do 2 episodes, scheduled properly. But this time around, I have a much bigger role this season. So I was not visiting. I was living out there for the entire shoot. So it was a much different experience than the last 2 years.
A bigger role. That's very exciting for us because we're a big fan of your work over here for Stand Against Evil in particular. Because you play, I believe, the goat demon Bahamut. That's one of my favorites for sure.
Yep, you got Baphomet on there.
Mm-hmm. And you're actually one of the first. You're the first witch, I believe. You're the crone version of what's her name?
Stella Stannis.
Stella, that's what it was. I wanted to say Ida, but I'm like, no, that's
the other one.
That's the other one. So
yeah, one of the 3. I have my 3 witches in the show. So so far. So I've got 3 crones to play with. Very Macbethy.
It's a very cool, and yes, we mentioned Ida as well. And I believe you are. What's the other witch that you play?
Priscilla Atherton was the other one
in season 2
has a short but sweet scene.
Mm-hmm. You melt in that scene, if I remember correctly, or
yes,
or age melt, or whatever it is.
Well, I got to share the scene with a cinema legend, Patty McCormick, who was the little girl in The Bad Seed, which was a favorite of my sister and I's growing up. So getting to share the character with her, where like she basically ducks out of the scene. She like, you know, even at like, you know, the older age that she's at, she like ducked, rolled across set. Then I like ran inside, rose up as like the old version of her. It was fantastic. She was great.
Ah, man, I love that old school type of like one person falls here and you get up here, stunt coordination and stuff. That's what really draws me to the show. And speaking of which, you play, I mean, and since you've spent so much more time in season 3 on set, what's it like being on set for a show like Stan, where you're in the makeup the whole time, you're working with all the different crew and the actors, you're in Georgia, so I'm guessing it's very hot.
We definitely just start with a base of extremely hot and sweaty to begin. You know, when I show up to set, you know, I show up many hours before I, you know, have to be there, just to give my artist team plenty of time to work on me. And I work with Autonomous Effects. My on-set makeup artist is Dave Snyder, and we have a few assistants that assist us each season as well. But I really begin my work on the show in LA. We do a lot of fittings for the characters beforehand. We go in to make sure that all the prosthetics are working, all the pieces, the costumes, everything they need to fit me for is working. So that once I land in Georgia, everything that's on set, ready to go, is, you know, no surprises. So we do a lot of work at the effects lab out here where everything's built. Once I show up to set, we have a big makeup trailer that we're all set up in. And we just go to work on me. You know, we give ourselves a little bit of extra time, you know, the first day to get everything right, to figure out the colors, to make sure everything's working and moving properly. And then, you know, each time we go in, it just gets faster and sharper. For me, a lot of the time, I sometimes don't meet a lot of our crew and a lot of our cast members out of makeup until maybe days or if not weeks after I land on set the first time. Some of the people I've worked with have never seen my face on set.
Wow.
which you know happens a lot. I have actually on the film that I did right before going off on Stan, I had security called on me because I was taking a week into filming the show because they just saw this dude with like black and purple hair, like walking around with coffee on set, looking at things.
Just hanging out.
I had no idea it was the guy playing, you know, the character the film is named after. So it's an ongoing identity crisis, really.
Now I just imagine it's like, oh, hey, Janet, what's going on? Security, get this strange man away from me. No. We worked on that.
Well, Dana did a wonderful thing in season 1, but, you know, but before we started shooting, he actually set up a lunch where it was me, Janet, Deb, and Nate all went out to lunch before we shot. So I actually got to meet I got to meet everybody before we shot that first one, except for John, who hadn't arrived yet. And I think John saw me as the Baphomet like the first several times before Dana brought me over to where John was working, and John looked over to me not knowing who the hell Dana was introducing him to before, like he's like, this is Mick, he's been playing Baphomet for the last week. So you know, it's always interesting. You know, I've met a lot of people for the first time over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta say your physicality in your work playing these demons and witches is very good. I actually have a hard time discerning you from of your different parts. I'm like, I was so shocked to learn you were all 3 of the witches, because just the way you move is very different between the different roles that you play. Would you like to describe the thought process when you're portraying, in the individual witches? Did Dana want a specific performance from each role, or was that kind of left up to you?
Of course. Well, I mean, I appreciate that that I was unrecognizable physically, because once it looks like the same performance, I feel like I've done as much with the show as I can. The thing about each of these, especially the witches, because for a lot of creatures, you can kind of think about pulling out of a box of tricks of it's like, oh, this is how a witch moves, or this is how, a werewolf moves, or what have you. But, if you get to that, the performance ends up looking very person in a costume, person in a mask. So for doing the witches, it was, I needed to make sure that Priscilla, Stella, and Ida all acted completely different. They had to have different personalities. They had to have different motivations. They had to have different energies to them, or else it would just feel like the same character with a different haircut. So all of them kind of had a different motivation to it. Stella was a lot angrier and more revenge based. She was, getting Janet, on the stake, and burning her was a total revenge tactic. Mm-hmm. So playing her more hunched over, more kind of grimacing, and just there was a lot more sort of anger and vengeance to her. Whereas Ida Putnam just reveled in chaos. She was doing what she was doing just because she enjoyed it. She was a lot more kind of fun to play, in the sense that, she was doing all of this because she genuinely just enjoyed the carnage she was creating. I made her a little bit more spry. I made her seem a little bit younger rather than kind of a withered hag. So she had better posture. She had a better way of moving about herself. And these are all things to take into consideration. When I get a new character, I unlike playing, something out of makeup where, it's kind of more an extension of myself with these other elements added onto it. Playing one of these characters is starting off completely from scratch. I'm everything about myself and what I do in my everyday is thrown out the window. So for each one of these characters, it's where's my center of balance? Where's my center of gravity? How do they move? How do they stand up? How do they look around? What is, what's their velocity of motion, of how fast they move or how fast they turn their head? All of these things fit into, who the character is, what their personality is, and what the story calls for. So I've now played 7 characters on the show, and each one of them is doing that same sort of process again of, okay, this is a whole new character to play with. What can I do differently that this show hasn't seen yet?
Yeah, we definitely appreciate that level of commitment to the role, because I feel like it really pays off in dividends for a show like this, with the special effects being so practical all the time. I really appreciate the level of realism it brings. I did want to bring up, you did correct me on one of our episodes before, which was fun, because it's always nice to know that people listen and will correct me on stuff, because I thought that in the last episode, the season finale of season 2, that because you are a very tall man, I just thought that they made a growing effect by tilting the camera up, kind of Power Ranger style. But you corrected me. You said you were actually on stilts for that effect.
Yeah, no, they called me ahead of time. I got the call from from Dana and Autonomous asking if I've done stilts before, which I had. And just they had this scene idea of Ida rising to this large height, and it was a blast to shoot with John doing that scene. I mean, I think that night doing that scene is probably the most fun I've had of the last 3 seasons. That was such a blast to shoot. There were so many moving pieces to it. A lot of back and forth between me and John. A lot of stunt choreography between me and Bob, our stunt choreographer, who we work out like crazier stuff every year with, and not only was I like rising in those stilts and moving around, and then I was at one point tackled in those stilts. Like Bob rushes me, picks me off, and throws me into like this big, like, collapsible, stunt pool and everything. It was a crazy night. But I practiced quite a bit on those just to make sure that I was ready for whatever the weather ended up throwing at us. But yeah, the dude, I was so happy to be able to play Ida because I had so many ideas for what I could do with her, and we really pushed that episode more and more with every fun little horror bit we were able to do with that. I think me ripping off Leon's head in that episode might be one of my favorite scenes I've ever done.
That is great. And I had wanted to ask you about the Leon head specifically, because I'm always curious about what happens to heads of actors after they're done with them. Because obviously,
this show might be able to use it again.
There's with time travel and everything, we could rip off Leon's head all day. But so obviously they made like a very realistic looking a head prop for Nate Mooney, and I was just like wondering, like, does that just stay on set? Do they get rid of it afterwards? Does it go into a head storage for like, well, maybe we'll need a head later? Like we're like,
yeah, just Autonomous's like barrel of heads that they have in the corner at the lab. No, it would be great if we just left it on set. We just left, and there's just Nate's head sitting in the street for someone to find the next day,
like a souvenir.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think that Nate has it. It probably ended up going back to Autonomous Effects, which is where all of the pieces from the show are stored there in case that we ever end up bringing that stuff back. But I love Nate so much because whenever he sees me for the first time in one of these creatures, he just has this look on his face like, oh God, this is what we're going to be dealing with on set for the next week. And he's so much, he was so much fun that night because the body and head of him looked so real. They took a life cast of him to make this very realistic version of him. And even with me being right in front of it, I have these sort of fog lenses on to paint everything a little bit gray. It looked so real. It looked beyond real, and all the little tendons and little things they hid in the neck that like snapped up and sprayed blood. It looked as good in person as it did on film. And I just saw when the shot was done, I looked out of the corner of my eye, and I just seen Nate at the monitors with his hand in his hand in his face, just like, oh God, this is so traumatizing.
To watch my own death.
Yeah, it is. It's a very weird thing to be able to just watch in the monitors as an exact replica of you is decapitated.
Especially if you had watched with me, because I know I'd have my hands up like in a touchdown dance, like, yeah, decapitation.
Well, I just wanted more from it. So, originally what we were, when I ripped the head off, I was just going to drop it and then like walk over to Janet. But I asked, Dave, I'm like, is the hair stable enough for me to grab a chunk up? And he's like, oh yeah, absolutely. So I asked Rob Cohen, if, our director for the episode, if I could just keep the head and just take it over to Janet and just lift it up and show her, because it was good enough for that. For a lesser prop, it would be the sort of thing where you just want to rip it off and toss it because it's not believable. Mm-hmm. But it was so realistic that I'm like, no, I've got to get more time out of this. It just looks too good. And I just love how that shot turned out.
No, it definitely looks great. Traumatizing and everything. Which leads me to another question I have with the makeup and like the costuming being so intricate with characters like yours, and with the set of Stan being as gooey as I think it is, like with all the blood splaying around.
Oh yeah.
How long does it take to, like, if you need to do another take of like, say, a kill, since you actually have like many kills as I think is an actor gets, like, how long does it take to like clean up and like get ready to try
and the shoot?
Yeah.
There are some shots in which we can do a few resets on, but there are other ones in which I make sure to try to do it right the first time. And I've been pretty good about that. I haven't had too many shots that they've had to make a major correction on and do more than like one or two takes. But in cases of the most infamous one that I still just feel terrible about having to do to her. But when Stella throws up on Evie in the first episode, that was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And my hat's off to Janet, who is the human embodiment of sunshine and is like the most like positive, wonderful person, because she's on the ground. I'm like on top of her. There's a huge hose that is like connected to a pump on the, like, Evil Dead style on the side of my face.
Oh my.
So this is not CG. This is basically, it's glued to the side of my face, and I'm set up and like aiming at her, and the stuff just starts just gushing out of this hose.
You're like a life-size, you're like a human-sized throw-up squirt gun. That's so...
Oh, like just even worse than a squirt gun. I mean, this was like a fire hose.
Oh, man.
I just, and it just went on so much longer than I expected it to. So what's going through my mind is, number one, I do not want to drown Janet.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would be terrible for our schedule if I drowned the lead actress on the first
Sure
week.
would be inconvenient.
And it would be an extreme inconvenience. But on the other hand, if I pull away and I worry about this and it doesn't get done the first time, then even worse is Janet then has to get cleaned up, do her hair, get in a new costume, go back on the ground, and have it all done again. So it's like, this has to get done the first time, or else it's just going to be a nightmare for everybody. And thankfully it was. Thankfully it was absolutely amazing, and it's such a great shot. But yeah, in cases like that, like, get it right the first time. Like it's making sure that all these moving pieces are doing what they have to do, because the resets with all that goo are hell.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reset on Stella. By the end of the night, my makeup looked ridiculous. I had hair sticking up on every which way, and like, the goo was all like splashed across with the paint and everything. I was a horrible mess by the end of that night, but all in good fun.
Man, that sounds so much fun. I would love to be on set to just see how some of these scenes come together. Travis, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. So obviously you play a monster and you typically just get killed in that episode. But going back to Ida, you actually get to play that character again. What was that like in that scene?
Well, actually,
he was actually...
I only played Ida once.
Oh, okay.
I actually ended up playing Ida the second time.
Oh, that's right. It was someone else the first time.
It was somebody else the first time, and they did not like the makeup.
Oh, okay.
I think they were, one of the cases they made. There's very few actors who regularly do the sort of thing I do. And we all kind of know each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're all, we run in a very small circle. And originally, there wasn't a lot of budget to bring out somebody from LA to play these characters. And they were like, we'll just put a casting call up. We'll get somebody local. And, Dana, who it was a friend of mine who I knew before the show, was insistent on the producers. It's like, look, you have to bring in somebody who knows how to do this work. You can't just put anybody in this stuff, because there's all these extra elements that go along with it. And, I hate to, because I never met the woman who played her beforehand. I hate to, I don't want to like be too harsh or anything, but, I think she talked about doing similar work before. And then when it actually came to it, I think she was extremely uncomfortable, and it was kind of difficult for her to actually, shoot in prosthetics.
Well, I imagine a lot of people go like, oh, it's just makeup. That can't be that bad, right? Without realizing it's probably a couple pounds of makeup.
Yeah, it's a different thing when somebody is like gluing right next to your eyelid and like painting with like Pax paint over your lids and, covering you completely. If you're not used to that, it's a lot. It's a lot to, wear this stuff. And, anybody who's remotely claustrophobic can easily be, shaken by it. Not to mention the fact that, when you're up there and you're performing, you have to forget that you're wearing all this stuff. So that's another aspect of it, is that not only do you have to wear it, but then you have to go out there and perform and act like you don't have all this stuff glued to your face.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just your face now. It has to move, and you have to act like that is just your face and not a enormous amount of like latex and silicone glued to you.
Right. I actually remember that it was you, and you didn't play her the first time because I was corrected wrongly by Les.
That's right. I was trying to remember which one that was. I remember we had this whole argument.
Yes, because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Mick, and Les was like, no, it's the other guy. I'm like, I don't know, and I didn't want to correct him on air, but I was 100% right. I just want that to go on the record.
Of course you do.
Put that point on the board.
Yep. One in the Mick board. I got it.
But you know, that's a regular thing for me. You know, I have to. I feel overly narcissistic in the amount of stuff I have to post about, like, you know, the things that I'm in and the things that I'm doing. But the truth is that if I don't post about it, people can watch something that I am featured heavily in and have no idea I'm in the movie or the show.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you know, that's one of the challenges professionally of doing this sort of thing, is that the people on set and the people you work with, you know, I've got nothing but a humbling and remarkable amount of love and appreciation from, and it's returned because I am continuously just impressed and blown away by, you know, the cast of Stan and everything that they bring to the table every day. I'll go to set when I'm not working just to watch them, because there's nothing I would rather do than see, you know, John and Janet and you know, Deborah and Nate just do their thing, because they're all so amazing. But it's a little bit harder on the professional side to kind of explain and get recognized from people who aren't there, who you know, don't know what I do firsthand, because if they can't see your face, for a lot of people, you know, people on the management or representative side, or people that, you know, are mostly not on set and are just on, you know, in offices seeing the stuff after the fact. If they don't see my face, it almost doesn't matter to them. They don't really know what to do with me.
Yeah.
So it's a whole other thing of trying to promote myself and explain what I do and show who I am outside of this stuff, because, you know, they could watch and enjoy a movie I'm in and have no idea I was in it.
Right. Not everyone can recognize you via your decapitation style like I can.
Exactly.
That's how I knew.
Yeah.
I was like, no, he twists and then pulls. That's what gives him away right there. That's a classic Mick decapitation right there, if I've ever saw one.
We all have our methods. We all have our methods.
We'll leave that one ominous. But Travis, did you have another question?
Yeah, not really so much, but it is understandable too, because your build does kind of give it off anytime you can see it underneath the makeup, because I see too that, like, one of the top 5 questions under, like, if you Google your name does be like Mick Ignus height.
Google's just how tall is this motherfucker?
Well, I've been significantly larger than what you've seen as well. You know,
Right.
I'm very tall as Horus as well. Not quite at stilt height, but you know, definitely a pretty towering figure as Horus this coming season. And I've done a few characters for live performances that have been Marvel characters that you might be able to see online, in which I'm not only about 7 feet tall, but I'm also completely covered in a massive muscle suit. So I'm not even thin in that. I'm like this just massive, huge juggernaut of a character, and I'm performing in that. And people are shocked when they see me come out of that, because, you know, I'm a foot taller and about 400 pounds less of muscle. So it's a major transformation there as well.
Well, that does lead me to my next question, because season 3 is coming. So I know no spoilers or anything, but what would you say is your most exciting part for working on season 3?
No spoilers, but please spoil for us.
Yeah, no spoilers, but here's a complete recap of everything that you'll see in season 3.
Oh no.
No, I think the most exciting thing for me coming into season 3, and this is you know, I don't think this is, you know, I think this is something I could say. We've talked about it, but Horus is the first recurring character that I've played on the show.
Ooh, okay.
Every other character that I've played in the last 2 seasons has been a one-off. You know, Ida's the only character that has appeared in more than one episode that's like a demon, other than Eccles, of course. But in season 3, Horus has more of a season arc. He's not a one-off character. So what you see in the trailer is just a very small tease of what Horus is and what he does this season. He's a speaking character as well, so I still actually have to go in and record the voice for Horus. But yeah, he has a more significant arc as a character. On top of that, the other character I get to play is in the first episode, which you probably saw, the sort of shambling corpse that Dana posted a little teaser photo of the first day we started shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's no normal zombie. That is kind of outside the realm of like a normal just Walking Dead corpse. I get to do a lot as this character, and there's some very heavy moments in the first episode with this character that's surprisingly for a character that's just called shriveled corpse it has a lot of depth. And you'll see with I'm not going to say what the first episode is, but you'll see kind of where that comes from and how this creature fits into the story. But that allowed me to just do a lot more character work and acting silently. Without being able to speak, I had to tell this story just with the way that I carried myself. And I had a great time with that. I felt like I got to stretch myself a lot more and, show off a little bit more of what I can do on the show than I have before. So I'm really excited for everybody to see that. I haven't seen the final cut yet, but I know Dana and John have, and they're really loving the episode. So I'm excited to see what they've put together.
Fantastic. I mean, shriveled corpse aside, maybe the part is big enough we have to change that name, Cheval Corpese or something.
Or just name him. We should just give him a name when he shows up. If he doesn't already have one.
You'll see exactly what the shriveled corpse is once we get to that episode. But yeah, there's definitely there's more than meets the eye with this character. And then I have a small cameo role in the 5th episode. Which is me out of prosthetic makeup. So it is the first time that you'll see me somewhat recognizable in that one.
Oh, great!
And that was definitely a very fun day of shooting as well.
Oh, sure. I'm actually glad to see. Like, oh, that's Mick. Oh no, Mick's getting killed. Oh no.
It was a good time. That day was one of the most fun days on set. I think everybody in the cast just had a great time with this location.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Well, we've had you on the line for a while here, Mick. The time has flown by talking with you. You are such an interesting guy, immaculate badass that I now am humbly. I am humbled to even know, because I'm like, I don't think I could do half of what you do in the amount of makeup and that amount of heat. It really makes me exhausted. I actually have to hang up the phone right now and just go take a nap. But
well, dude, I'll tell you, as much of a pain as it can be, I would not be doing it if it wasn't just the most amount of fun I could be having on set. These characters are so much fun, and no, I'm spoiled rotten by the show itself, because what Dana writes and what these writers create. I mean, yeah, it's rough to wear this stuff, but it is so worth it for what I get to do in it.
Shh, Matt, come on, keep it down. If they know that you like it, they might not want to pay you as much.
Well, the house is tapped, so I'm pretty sure that Dana's listening to everything I'm saying right now. So I'm making sure to. I love the show so much. I can't wait for next summer.
Dana, I am so sorry I criticized that episode of The Simpsons. They're all good, even past season 10.
Oh, make it more uncomfortable for me next season. Set me on fire. It'll be great.
I like that we're all supplicated to the Lord Dana Gould.
Oh yeah, no, he is all powerful in his way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do have my suspicions of the character Kevin, that he is actually God on the show.
He is God,
and he's just written himself in as like some sort of sub character. But you know what? We were not going to get into that right now. We're going to wrap this up here, Mick.
Oh, if we start getting into Kevin conspiracy theories, we'll be here all day. Kevin has a lot of fun stuff next season, and is as the joke continues on, the most interesting character that you'll never hear more about.
Nope. Oh man, all sorts of ding-dongs doing all sorts of baloney out here. But it was fun to do this baloney with you, my friend. It was great having you on. Thank you so much for taking the time to do the interview with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and keep it up. I love knowing that this podcast is out there, covering this stuff. I can't wait for you to see season 3.
Oh, we are excited
Fantastic.
as well.
Would you do you have any upcoming projects you would like to promote or pimp that are not Stan related? I know you were talking a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I have 2 that were announced this week. The one I launched this morning is I did a film a few years ago called Severus Snape and the Marauders, which was this very, very high production fan film that took off virally that I'm extremely proud of, that I play a young Severus Snape in. And we've just continued it in a radio play form that I've actually not only returning for the role of, but also producing. And we launched the first episode this morning. It's for free on YouTube and all sorts of podcast websites, so you can check that out there. And then coming to Netflix this fall, probably around the same time as Stan, is a show called The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell. And it is, you can imagine a combination of the Addams Family and Martha Stewart, but produced by the Jim Henson Company. And I am one of the main. I am the part of the main cast in that. So it just got announced yesterday. Very little information has been released yet about it, but I'll be talking a lot more about that in the near future because it's a very, very unique program, and that's one that you'll see me in every episode of.
That sounds
That's
amazing.
a lot of trigger words. I kind of like
it. That's a lot of buzzwords of ooh, I like that thing. Yeah. I like that thing too.
Those are things.
Yeah, it's a show that's all things you like. Those things you like? It's like all here.
But in one show.
We decided to make a show with all things that are good. We thought that was a good direction to go in. Just all the good things that people like.
Well, thank you so much again, Mick. We're going to get on out of here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And like always, may the owls abide. See you later, Stan fans.